Hey everyone, Dr. Shukla here. Today we'll be exploring antibiotics and a concerning trend, antibiotic resistance. Antibiotics are medications that are specifically designed to combat bacterial infections. Bacteria, though single-celled organisms, can cause a variety of illnesses. Antibiotics employ various mechanisms to disrupt bacterial functions, ultimately hindering their growth and preventing them from causing harm. Antibiotic resistance is a serious public health threat. As these medications become less effective, it leads to more people becoming sick, staying sick for longer, and even death. This puts a significant strain on healthcare systems, with rising costs and the challenge of developing new antibiotics to stay ahead of this evolving problem. However, there's a critical challenge. Bacteria have the ability to evolve, and through this process they can develop resistance to antibiotics. This essentially means that antibiotics become less effective in eliminating them. We can think of this as bacteria acquiring armor that renders our current weapons useless. Let's take a look at these methods together. As bacteria multiply, some develop mutations in their genes. These mutations can give them a survival advantage, particularly when we introduce antibiotics. Let's look at some examples. Here we see a bacteria producing enzymes like beta-lactamase. These enzymes act like molecular scissors, specifically targeting and breaking down antibiotics, like beta-lactams, rendering them ineffective. Essentially, the bacteria are developing built-in defenses to disarm these antibiotics before they can take effect. Another resistance mechanism involves protein structures called efflux pumps. These pumps act like security guards, actively pushing antibiotics back out of the bacteria before they can reach the targets inside. You can imagine these pumps as bouncers at a club, throwing out antibiotics before they can cause any trouble within the bacterial cell. Bacteria can also undergo physical changes. They might strengthen their cell walls by adding more peptidoglycan, a complex sugar molecule. This makes it harder for antibiotics to penetrate and attack the bacteria. Additionally, some bacteria can modify the structure of the proteins that antibiotics target, like penicillin-binding proteins. These modifications create a mismatch between the bacteria and the drug, preventing the antibiotic from binding effectively and stopping bacterial growth. A major cause of these resistances arising is the misuse and overuse of antibiotics. By giving bacteria a greater chance to be exposed to and adapt against our antibiotics, we lose the protection they provide us. Here's how it works. Imagine we use an antibiotic too often, or for the wrong reasons, like for a viral infection. This exposes a large population of bacteria to the antibiotic. But bacteria are clever. Some have natural variations in their genes that make them more resistant to these antibiotics. When the antibiotic wipes out the non-resistant bacteria, the resistant ones survive and thrive. They multiply and pass the resistant genes to their offspring. This creates a whole new generation of superbugs, bacteria immune to the antibiotics we once relied on. It doesn't actually stop there. Bacteria can also share these resistant genes with each other through something called horizontal gene transfer. The bacteria can take parts of its DNA that give it resistance and shoot them out, and other bacteria can then engulf this DNA code and incorporate it into their own structure. This way, the immunity spreads throughout the bacterial colony, increasing the risk of antibiotic resistance. So we've established that antibiotic resistance is a serious threat. But what can we do about it? Let's have a look. First and foremost, we need to be smarter about how we use antibiotics. This is where antibiotic stewardship programs come in. These programs help educate both patients and healthcare workers on the appropriate use and prescription of antibiotics. Remember, antibiotics are a powerful weapon, but they should only be used to fight bacterial infections, not viral ones like the common cold. Using them unnecessarily allows bacteria to develop resistance. Secondly, we need new weapons in our own arsenal. This is where research and development take center stage. Scientists are constantly searching for novel antibiotics with different mechanisms of action. Think of it like creating new tactics to outmaneuver these resistant bacteria. But that's not all. We also explore alternative methods to combat infections. One such method is phage therapy. Imagine tiny viruses called bacteriophages that specifically target and destroy resistant bacteria. They're nature's built-in assassins for these specific strains. One final approach is immunotherapy. This method strengthens our own body's defense systems to fight off infections. By boosting our own immune system, we can potentially reduce our reliance on antibiotics altogether. With these strategies in mind, we can effectively fight back against antibiotic resistance. We can ensure that these life-saving medications remain effective for generations to come. The future depends on our ability to stay ahead of these resistant bacteria, and with continued research and smart practices, we can win this fight.